Okay, guys. So yeah, coming to you tonight with our part two of our guide to a healthy sleep. So you got me and Greg and the dogs, by the looks of it, coming on to tonight's call. What are they like, Greg? Are they good with their sleep routine?
Yeah, they
Been a wet
definitely
little
do.
baby.
Do you? Huh?
Yeah. So tonight, guys, we're going to get delving a little bit deeper into sort of the science side of things, like some things we touched on last week. So yeah, we're going to be looking at the impact of sleep on health, cognition, and sort of athletic performance. So some of the key things we're going to be looking at in tonight's training is just to, like I say, delve a little bit deeper, explain the influence sleep has on metabolic health and obesity. We're going to be looking at immunity and cancer as well, mental health and cognitive function. And also, like I said in the title, we're going to be looking at athletic performance. Okay, so yeah, I just want to kick off with a little quote. So yeah, if you told an athlete you had a treatment that would reduce the chemicals associated with stress, that naturally increase human growth hormone, enhances recovery, improves performance, they would bite your hand off. But the mad thing is that sleep does all of those things. And this is why I'm hoping we're all going to take away tonight is just, again, we're just trying to reinforce our message that sleep really is that foundation of health, which everything else, those other pillars stand upon. What do you think about that, Greg? Would you sort of agree with that sort of statement?
Oh yeah. Massively neglected by athletes, by the people that we deal with, by Stacey sometimes. And it's such like it's such an easy way to improve performance without actually having to do anything.
Yeah, really. You're just going to sleep a little bit earlier, or sleeping for a little bit longer. It's not rocket science, really, is it? But sometimes easier said than done, in all fairness.
Oh no, agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to kick off with looking at the effects of sleep on metabolic health and obesity. And yeah, like some of the biggest things, guys, is a lack of sleep has a massively negative impact on, like you said last week, it negatively impacts everything. So some of the things when it comes to sort of metabolic health and weight and stuff like that is you get sort of reduced insulin sensitivity, you get an increased appetite and sort of lower metabolic rate. So yeah, with that increased appetite, I remember again, we reference why we sleep, and I'll probably reference it a million times over throughout this three-part series that we're doing, just because it has all the information in there. So yeah, like I say, if you're looking to improve your knowledge on sleep, guys, definitely recommend that book. Anyway, yeah, so increased appetite. So you'll probably explain this better than me, Greg, but like the effects of ghrelin and leptin. So of course, ghrelin is the hunger hormone, isn't it? And leptin is the satiety one, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically like when you're not sleeping properly, ghrelin gets ramped up. So, our appetites increase, we're looking for more food. And then you've got the other one, leptin. That also, I think, is plummets. So then
Yeah.
we don't
So yeah, left
get
also.
as full, do we? So so it's just all these things sort of start working against us. So it's like it's not that the lack of sleep directly means you might struggle a bit with weight loss, but it's what the knock-on effect of the lack of sleep has on the body, which can sort of bring on these negative reactions. So yeah, like I say, lack of sleep makes people more hungrier and more likely to make poor choices. So again, a study that was referenced in that book. I think it was they had like, I don't know if it was I can't quite remember if it was the same group or two different groups, but they put them in a hotel room, and for one part of the study they were given like adequate sleep, which I think is somewhere between the 7 to 9 hours per night, and like they'd stay in the hotel room, so their activity was contained. So literally all they could do was move around the room, and like every day they get delivered like a tray of food, and they could just pick what food they wanted off it. There was no limits or anything like that. And it showed when they had adequate sleep versus when they had, say, 4 hours sleep, they actually consumed an extra 300 calories per day when they were deprived of sleep. So that just shows you there how they would just basically, they didn't realize they were doing it, but they were taking more food or high amounts of higher calorie foods, usually the form of carbs and fats, from the table. So yeah, their intake increased, and unfortunately for us women, we seem to get it always with the short end of the straw. Yeah, so we got affected the most by that. So yeah, it was noted that in this study, women's intake increased by about 15%, whereas men's intake increased by about 9%. But again, the key takeaway is that it affects us all. So yeah, lack of sleep is going to lead to a bit of a ramped up appetite. And yeah, if that sort of behavior was sustained over a period of time, then that could equate to weight gain. And that they sort of reference it could be like the equivalent to 2 pounds of fat per month. I don't know what sort of method they use to come up to that conclusion, but I'm going to trust what they say more than me. And we know that, Greg. So if you're going to overconsume calories for an extended period of time, that's going to result in some form of net weight gain at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And like as well as obviously increased appetite, reduced insulin sensitivity, lower metabolic rate, there's a downregulation that generally tends to happen in NEAT as well. So people just move less when they lack sleep. So it's not just a factor of extra food consumption just because you're awake. It's increased appetite, lowered movement, lowered metabolic rate, and then poor metabolic markers. So like the problem with the vast majority of these things is they tend to drive you into those cycles. So you get lack of sleep, increased stress, poor appetite regulation, which just leads continually back into more reduced insulin sensitivity, more increased appetite, lower metabolic rate, and it just keeps that vicious cycle going for a lot of people. So like when people wonder why they can't control themselves or control appetite or control the foods they eat, most people don't realize the cycle that they find themselves in. So like in order to break those vicious cycles, sleep is normally a massive one.
Yeah, it's like you're stuck on a roller coaster and you don't realize it, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's getting off the merry-go-round. Like you need something to break that cycle for you.
Yeah, that's it.
This is me the last 2 weeks. Face palm.
Oh, that's Casey commented. I see the chat come up. I was scared to click on it in case it comes off the share screen.
No, it's all right. She just said, "This is me the past 2 weeks." Face palm. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, it's hard. It just makes everything harder for you.
And yeah, like it like life ebbs and flows as well. So you might have periods like say for the last 2 weeks, she's obviously like struggled for whatever reasons that these other factors going on. So yeah, it can ebb and flow with this. We have periods of like you're getting good sleep, you're getting it all right, and then periods where sleep gets a little bit out of whack. And sometimes that's life. It's just trying to get back into routine as quickly as possible with it, really, isn't it?
And it is like same for you, Stace. It's getting back as quickly as possible, and it's always the best way to think about these things. Anything. My boring evenings now tend to be based around some sort of studying or like talking about nutrition or whatever it may be, and every single lecturer, scientist that I listen to, they basically just talk about the same factors over and over again. Like you can't out supplement poor sleep, high stress levels, and therefore you won't have good general nutrition. So like we can't out supplement any of these things. So like people always ask, what's the best supplement to take for health? And for most people and the way they live their lives, it's not a supplement. It's lowering stress levels and it's increasing sleep.
Yes, managing their lifestyle, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like that roller coaster and that merry-go-round, like we talked about just then, is that leads on to this next point. Is like so the study I referenced earlier was just a short sleep study. So this was just done over a short duration of time. When we're talking, like most people are actually probably chronically sleep deprived, where they've been not getting good quality or not enough quantity of sleep for a long period of time, and life being the way it is, stress doesn't seem to go away nowadays. We're working longer hours, like we're answering emails in bed and things like that. And whereas in the days, the caveman days where a saber-toothed tiger would appear, you'd run away, you get yourself to a safe spot, and then you're not stressed anymore. Like say in this life, like in modern lifestyle, that doesn't go away. So we're chronically stress levels are up here, and that over a long period of time gets you stuck in that loop that Greg mentioned earlier. So yeah, your stress hormones are out of whack, your glycemic control is negatively affected, and and then it just keeps going and going and going. And it's just a case of trying to put a stop to it almost and try and get some control. And it does take time as well. It's not an easy fix. Sometimes it does build up. a little bit. And I think we touched on last week about sleep debt and stuff like that. So yeah, like, so that increased, like, so when stress is like chronically elevated for a long time, you get that increased cortisol. So that in itself can further trigger, food intake. And as Greg mentioned, you can notice some reduced physical activity, which is one of the reasons why we get people to monitor their steps. So one, obviously, it's a way of seeing where they're at in terms of activity. And then if we want to create more of a calorie deficit to, either bust through a plateau or speed up results, then we might say, right, you're doing 10,000, now let's do 12. But also the other reverse to that is, say someone's been in a deficit for a long period of time, and suddenly we're noticing their activity drop. I noticed with one of my clients recently, and she was, her target was 12,000 steps. In the last few weeks, she's been getting like 9,000, something like that, which, is not the end of the world, but it's not quite where we want it to be. So I said, what's going on? And she's like, well, I'm just too tired. And I'm like, well, talk to me about routine, what you're doing. It's like, she's training twice a day. She wants to cut her calories as low as possible. So that, therefore, when she's finished, she's too tired to hit her steps. It's like, right, no, like eat more. And let's like work on trying to get your steps back up and bring your activity back up. It's not always about doing more and eating less. And so, yeah, we've started to see that drop with her. And yeah, so basically in a nutshell, we don't want to move as much. And we go searching for higher calorie foods, usually in carbs and fats. And I think I've read recently, Greg, so sort of like, is it like higher fat and carb foods, they help reduce cortisol? So like eating those foods spikes insulin, which then adversely brings cortisol down, or something like that?
Yeah, so insulin can act as an anti-inflammatory hormone sometimes in certain circumstances, and carbohydrates are the only macronutrient that actually lowers cortisol response. Mm-hmm. So it's why we seek out those foods in times of stress. It's also like it's a protective mechanism, because like stress in itself is a fear of threat, and when we fear threat, it instantly, it puts us more limbically dominant than, say, so the limbic brain is basically our, I'll call it primitive brain. So it's responsible for reactions to stressful scenarios, stuff like that. The limbic brain is driven for satiety and satisfaction now, rather than prefrontal cortex, which is our like executive decision-making part of the brain, where we make the right decisions for long-term gain, gets switched off in times of stress. So we just want to seek out instant gratification when we're stressed. It's a good way of explaining it is, so when carbohydrates and fat reduce the stress response, or we get that lovely feeling we get from eating really bad food in inverted commas, and then it lowers the stress response, but then what do you instantly get? You get a switch on of your prefrontal cortex, then you automatically, because now your decision making is better, so now you feel bad about what you've just done.
Yeah,
it's awful. It's an awful cycle.
Yes, and then the guilt kicks in, and
and then you're wondering why you
try and super compensate by not eating and not eating all the rest of the day or whatever it might be.
And then we get into that feeling of, why can't I control myself? Why am I so gluttonous? Why can't I eat why don't I eat the stuff I should? When really your body's doing exactly what it should do. When you're super stressed, super tired, it wants instant gratification. It wants it now. It wants to get you out of pain now. It doesn't care about your long-term trip to wherever you're going or your wedding. It doesn't care about those things. It wants satisfaction now.
Yeah, and that's it's like, say, it's the body can't decipher one thing from the next. Like you say, it doesn't know you've got a wedding or a holiday coming up. It just knows that it needs to try and help you out right now of this whatever situation your body's in. So it's a case of, it's just increased awareness really, and just understanding those things. And when those sort of things do happen, it's a case of trying not to get stuck in that negative loop where you feel guilty, you overcompensate, you beat yourself up about it for days, and then you purge yourself by doing extra boot camps or wherever it might be. It's just a case of accept it is what it is, move on, just get back on plan as soon as possible, whether that be the next meal or the next day. Ideally by the next meal, just try and get them back as soon as possible.
Do you want to know a very interesting fact?
Oh, go on.
Where the highest concentration, because you were talking about the aerobic system, weren't you, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
Where, here's a quiz for you. I'm not going to quiz you. Where's the highest amount of mitochondrial density in females?
What, in terms of like musculature?
No, just in any organ or part of the body. I didn't know the answer, in fairness, when the guy put it to me.
Well, first instance, it would say look like lower body, but I don't know. That's where we have more of our muscle mass.
Ovaries.
Ovaries. Okay, interesting.
Where's the highest amount of? I know it's not a trick question. Where's the highest amount of mitochondrial density in a male?
Would it be testes then or whatever?
No, prefrontal cortex.
Oh, is it?
I know. I thought that was mad as well. So this. So there's obviously more to it, but being able to reduce stress and live aerobically makes women more fertile and makes men make better decisions.
Wow. I'm actually stunned by that one. That's good.
Yeah, I was as well. I was like, I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Where were we? Oh yeah, and the other one I was talking about earlier was this. Yeah, like I think Greg's touched on it a few times. Is that reduced insulin sensitivity as well? So yeah, the body then isn't able to sort of use sugar in the blood effectively, and then this can lead to getting stored fat and developing type 2 diabetes. But there's more to it than just not getting enough sleep. But not getting enough sleep will be a factor which pushes this on. So in a nutshell, just summarizing on the sort of health and obesity side of it now. So yeah, whether you're managing a condition like type 2 diabetes or you're just trying to lose a bit of fat, improve body composition, then yeah, getting enough sleep is an essential part of that routine. Like I say, it's not necessarily direct influence, it's just the things that the sleep will then impact. So yeah, your hunger, your satiety, decision making, all those sort of things, managing your cravings, keeping your metabolism, helping you to maintain NEAT, keep our metabolism higher, those sort of things. So yeah, moving on to sort of the immune system side of things now. And again, essential is going to be a big word I'm going to keep saying tonight as well. So yeah, sleep is an essential component of the body's rest and repair system. So we touched on this last week with the, I think it was restorative theory, where during sleep, that's where the body then sort of rests, repairs itself and goes through all those sort of processes. So where you tend to see a release in growth hormone overnight, and you see a release of other chemicals as well that the immune system uses to help it function and to fight off pathogens. And this is one I've not heard before, Greg. Glutathione, or what, I don't know. How do you say that one? Glutathione, the master antioxidant, apparently. So yeah, this one is it's basically one of the biggest ones in terms of countering inflammation, which can lead to things like cancer. And this, again, it's one of those chemicals which is produced during sleep. And it, like I said, it just helps fight off any pathogens that come into the body and helps to sort of repair any damaged tissues. But yeah, in terms of, again, we've touched on, there's a lot more to it than just sleep sometimes. So yeah, sleep or during periods of chronic stress where you're burning the candles at both ends, diet's poor, you're eating too many calories, you're not moving very much. These sort of factors or lifestyle factors can cause a bit of a build-up in sort of inflammatory markers, and this can then lead to an increased risk of chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease and cancer being two of the examples there. And yeah, just to back up what we said a lot last week, where sleep and health go hand in hand. There's loads of studies. So just checked a few key points from some of the ones I've seen today. So yeah, so people who average less than 6 hours of sleep per night were at increased risk of cardiovascular disease, like I said on the previous slide. But then all-cause mortality, which is basically everything, is higher as well. And again, it's just due to that build-up of inflammation, and in particular with the sort of cardiovascular disease side of things, it just disrupts the function of the heart and blood vessels, which can lead to issues then. And again, yeah, those who experience chronic sleep, so this is poor quality or quantity of sleep over a long period of time, So like people like night workers who their patterns are disrupted, they're sleeping during the day, they're at more of a risk of developing some types of cancer as well. And then again, one more. So people who sleep in less than 7 hours per night were 3 times more likely to become sick. So yeah, there's a lot of research out there, guys. It's just screaming at us that get more sleep if quality of life and longevity is what you're looking for. So if you want to stick around for a long time, get your sleep, basically.
You always have that argument with people. I never actually say it, but I always want to say it. When someone says, "Oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead,"
yeah,
and you really do just feel like saying, "Well, don't worry, it'll be with you. It'll be with you sooner than you think." I never would, but it's tempting.
I know, because actually that was a bullet point on the slide last week. It's like, if you don't sleep, you will die. And it's like, that sounded very morbid, but it's true. Yeah. It won't be straight away, but eventually. And that's what we're saying in a very roundabout way is, sleep for your benefit, guys. So yeah, the takeaway from sort of those sort of things was, getting a good, reliable sleep routine that you're consistent with is going to leave you rested and refreshed. And like I said, that's the best thing you can do for quality and longevity of life. It'll put yourself or your body in a much better place to support the immune system, which means it's better equipped to fight off acute diseases like flu and all stuff like that as well. And it protects against, cancer and any other inflammation-related disorders. Okay, so touching more on sort of the mental health and cognitive function now. So yeah, we talked about the effect of sleep on sort of learning, memories, and sort of that sort of stuff last week with the information consolidation theory. So yeah, just embedding what we talked about last week a little bit more. So yeah, getting adequate sleep just means usually is linked with improved mood, productivity, and sort of your mental outlook, which is sort of your mindset sort of thing. And what's been found is a lack of sleep results in greater feelings of depression, and you also see depression, linked with sleep disorders. There's sort of there's a bit of a hand-in-hand relationship with these two at the moment. So with that then as well, poor sleep is associated with increased risk of suicide and other mental health problems. And there's a lot more research coming out now about sleep therapy as being sort of a treatment for depression, I'm assuming as opposed to medication. And what they found so far in some of the studies that have been done is, as you would hope, that as a part of going through sleep therapy, sleep was improved. But also as part of that, there was decreased paranoia, reduced feelings of depression and anxiety, and people stopped having nightmares as well. So that's where the sort of the quality of sleep would come into it as well. And I think some people, I don't know, like I say, some of the things I've read today, like some people are touting for that to be sort of, in terms of the treatment of depression, that sleep therapy being the first protocol rather than further down the line. And yeah, and like on the flip side of that, if we get adequate sleep, we feel a little bit better. If we're not getting enough sleep, anger, frustration, irritation, everything, those negative reactions to daily situations all get ramped up. And that's to do with something with I never know how to say that, amygdala, or I don't know. How do you say it, Greg? Amygdala. There we go. Amygdala in the brain, and that's what regulates emotions. So yeah, if we're not sleeping well, that goes out of whack, and our emotions just get a little bit heightened, and often our reactions become a little bit more negative. I'm sure we've all had days like that where we've had a bad night's sleep and we just want to take it out on the rest of the world. Or might just be me, I don't know. The members accused me of that at boot camp this morning when I wrote it down. Like, oh Christ, you must be in a bad mood. And yeah, so, and also as part of not getting enough sleep, sort of our reasoning and cognitive performance also dips a little bit as well. So another study I found, subjects had less than 6.5 hours sleep per night. They demonstrated some deficits, and that was 33% memory, 36% in attention, and 51% in executive function. So yeah, they they didn't remember as many facts. You know, they couldn't focus. They lost attention quite a bit during the study, and executive function, that sort of those decision-making processes all just sort of dipped a little bit. And then what they did then is then put them on a sleep improvement protocol, asked them to sleep for at least 7.5 hours per night. And basically all those markers I mentioned just then, they all improved. And also their sleep quality improved by 24% as well. So again, it's just showing you the more sleep you get cognitively, the better the brain sort of works in terms of, you know, setting anything we've learned in the day in terms of motor skills or information, and just consolidating everything, which is what happens during those stages of sleep we touched on last week. And yeah, and that coincided with improvement in sort of hormones and chemicals and that sort of thing. So yeah, cortisol and dopamine sort of become more regulated, and that's had a positive impact on cognition and mood as well. And yeah, like for a lot of things, we often say more is not necessarily better. When it comes to sleep, more is better. So we talk like say the average recommendation for adults is somewhere between 7 and 9 hours, but that's not necessarily, you know, the case for everyone. We're all different. Some people need more sleep, some people don't need as much. But yeah, further studies again where sleep was extended further. So for 6 days, people asked to increase their sleep from like 8 hours up to like 9-10 hours over 6 days, and again they showed improvements. So motor functions improved, their ability to pay attention, focus, and they were able to respond faster to sort of challenges as well. So again, just shows the brain just functions a lot better when you know, we're increasing the amount of sleep we're getting. And like I said, this is only 6 days, so that's just a short-term little effect there. So you imagine if you do that over a long period of time, how much better you're going to be able to feel and perform on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and it's just the next point is just something we've said already. It's like, yeah, it improves your ability to learn, remember, and just improves your sort of mental outlook. And yeah, it helps with feelings of depression, anxiety, and those sort of things. Okay, and then touching on sort of the athletic performance side of things. So yeah, like when I say athletic performance, people think athletes, and you might go, oh, I'm not an athlete, but you know, we're all recreational athletes here. We train, you know, so we're just it's still these sort of things, even though we're not doing this professionally, it still affects us, benefits us, and there's things we can take away from this. So yeah, as we said earlier, sleep is one of the best legal performance enhancing sort of tools that we've got available to us, whether we're an athlete or not. And I referenced the one of the key points of the Stanford study last week. So yeah, just to reiterate, just in case anyone's forgotten. So yeah, this study on the men's basketball team, so they put them on a sleep extension study where they asked them to sleep for 10 hours, and they've done this over 7 weeks. And their performance just increased massively. So yeah, their 3-point shooting accuracy increased by 14%, free throwing improved by 11%, and their sprint time improved by 7 seconds, which, you know, or 0.7 of a second, I should say, which, you know, can seem marginal, not great, but, you know, when it comes to, you know, professional sports, those little 1% margins make all the difference. So yeah, in terms of sport and performance, this is like a big jump up. And then also the players, touching on what we talked about on the previous slides, they reported having, you know, a better mood and a bit more self-confidence as well, which obviously then would relate to their performance. And other studies have been done as well on different sports, so swimming, track athletes, and military cadets. And again, the findings were similar. And other studies, which I think was done on the military cadets, where they just increased sleep for 4 nights by 90 minutes. And just in those 4 nights, reaction time improved, power improved, motivation improved, and again, cognitive function improved. So it can be, you know, it can take time to learn to do improve your sleep hygiene and these sort of things, but you can get quite good results quite quickly looking at the research, which actually surprised me, because I don't know about you, Greg, I always thought like trying to rectify sleep debt and those sort of things would take a bit of time, but it just shows here that, you know, you can get quite quick benefits from doing this sort of stuff.
Well, if you look at, because Stanford University, like that's like Division One NCAA basketball. So it's like a really, really high standard of basketball. Like people would pay millions and millions of pounds to improve 3-point shooting over a team by 2 and 3%. And these guys are getting almost a 14% increase. And like people will always ask, like you said, people talk about performance enhancing drugs, what supplement, what food, nothing, no difference, just slept more. It's insane.
Yeah, it is bonkers, isn't it? Like especially that one, like the just sleeping an extra 90 minutes improved all those things. It doesn't say how much, in all fairness, but it's got to be to some degree an improvement. Otherwise, they can't say it, can they?
They would have to say it's statistically significant. So it means it has to be like, what is it, 3 points across? So like it has to be a reasonable amount for them to put at the bottom of a paper anyway.
That's it, yeah. So what's that tell us? That again, sleep should be the primary component of any athlete's training program. And as I just want to keep reiterating, I know we're talking about athletes here, but this again, getting good sleep will positively influence us in the gym as well, and everything we do in our day-to-day lives, whether that's getting our steps and we had testing last week, so that's the week, well, the week you want to be sleeping well, but you want to be at least having a good amount of sleep if you want to perform at your best going into your testing week. But yeah, as I said last week, 70% of the world's population is not sleeping enough, and even athletes are no different. And this is due to factors like having to travel, they time-consuming workouts. Their training can be a little bit more intense, and then also mental side of things as well. So they can suffer from like performance anxiety and stuff like that, especially leading up to big events. We saw at the Olympics recently. I don't know her name, but the American gymnast, and she pulled out in the end, didn't she? Because she was like, "There's something not right in my head, and I can't perform at the level I'm going to be." So she took a step back, and so. Yeah, you see those sort of things creeping in with those athletes as well, and like say this, it's either if they're in this situation, it's either they increase risk of injury or compromised performance, and those are some of the exact reasons why she pulled out in the end. She said she's not performing at her best, so therefore she's letting her team down. In her head, she's letting her team down, or she's going to hurt herself because she's going to try and do something and she's going to do it wrong. And yeah, she took that step back, and I think she did actually compete towards the end in a different competition. But it just shows that even like athletes at the highest level suffer these sort of things. I don't know if it's due to a lack of sleep. I'm just trying to give you some examples, of athletes who would say these sort of things. And again, lack of sleep is associated with a shorter playing career. So yeah, longevity, get your sleep. And so why are athletes getting potentially a more risk of injury? It's just because of, how sleep impacts the central nervous system and hormone release. So, you're not getting enough sleep. We're not benefiting from those restorative functions that occur while we do sleep, which can result in things like, reduced tissue repair, and they can't recover from any muscle damage as a result of training, inhibit neural recuperation and delays recovery again, lower stress resilience, which causes that buildup of inflammation we talked about earlier, and then reduce reaction times. And it's funny because like a lack of sleep can result you in having reaction times a similar level to as you being drunk, which is what we talked about last week, where most car accidents are not due to people being drunk driving, they're due to people's driving on a lack of sleep. So yeah, you can just see, again, it's just backing up some of the points we touched on last week, where a lack of sleep has a big impact, both for like on physically, cognitively, mentally. It impacts everything. So that's a lot of talking and a lot of information. So I just put some of the stuff we talked about in the bullet point fashion here, just to have a little look over. So yeah, in terms of the metabolic side of things, some of the impacts we see from not getting good amount of sleep or good quality sleep. So yeah, decrease in insulin sensitivity, increased appetite, cravings for higher carb, fatty foods, so therefore more calorie dense foods, decreased body temperature, decreased resting energy expenditure. So like Greg touched on, where we naturally just don't move as much or fidget as much. Difficulty losing fat, increased risk of diabetes, and then potentially difficulty managing diabetes. Were there any points there you want to touch on a little bit more, Greg, or are you sort of happy what we've gone over with those?
No, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, and then the immune ones we talked about was the decrease in that glutathione, which yes, nailed it, which gets released during sleep, obviously, like we said earlier. There's an increase in oxidative stress, which means higher inflammation, greater risk at those inflammatory diseases like cancer, cardiovascular disease, those sort of things. And then the lower immune function, immune resistance from communicable disease illnesses, which is things like flu. I don't want to say COVID-19 because I'm sick of talking about COVID-19. I'm just going to generalize it and say flu. And then we talked about the effect of, we talked about cognition and psychology in one earlier, so let's just look at them separately. So in terms of cognition, if we don't get good sleep, decrease in learning, decrease in memory, and then just a poorer work and academic performance. And then on the psychological side, increased risk of depression, decreased memory twice. Don't know why I did that. And then again, poorer work performance. So they sort of do interlink those two, but the psychological is more sort of our those feelings of depression, anxiety, our mood, our mindset, those sort of things. And then the last one was performance. There we are. Gone too far. So in terms of how our performance is affected, reduced precision, slower speed and power output, slower reaction times, lower motivation to perform, increased risk of injury, slower recovery, and then, like I said earlier, that shorter competitive lifespan. So you often find people retiring earlier, whether it's through injury or other reasons from professional playing career. And usually that's associated with the effects of having lack of sleep. And then, just summarize, we talked about all these points earlier in the slide, but just put them back in again. So sleep is vital to everything in a nutshell. So if you're looking to improve body composition, get sleep, get some more sleep, just because this is going to help you, manage your hunger, your cravings, help your decision making, just makes you more compliant with your nutrition program. And then again, in terms of quality of life, get a good sleep routine. It's going to leave you feeling rested, refreshed, better, just in general. It's going to improve your mood, your emotions, your decision making. So brain health and function, all those sort of things. And and if you're not saying we're all performance is the most important thing in the world here, but if you're looking to perform well in the gym, you want to get the most out of your workouts, then getting good sleep is going to affect that as well. So it's going to shore up your defense against injury, illness, and poor performance. So if you're able to train hard in the gym, you're gonna get stronger. You're gonna potentially increase expenditure by burning more calories. So again, you're just gonna get more sleep. It allows you to put a little bit more into your performance on the gym floor, which is gonna benefit you in relation to your goals, whether it's more fat loss or increasing muscle mass, or whether it's just health in general and just being functionally better. So everything gets better with good sleep, basically. And that's all I'm going to keep saying over the next three episodes we're doing of this. Anything you wanted to drop in there, Greg?
No, it's just it's just so hard to get across to people the importance of it. So when people say I don't have enough time in the day, I have to do so much work, whether whatever it may be, and sometimes I'll argue, well, do you ever think that if you actually got 2 extra hours sleep, you'd be more efficient at the work you do, so you wouldn't have to work as many hours?
Essentially.
So like a lot of the time, you talk to people about illness, people don't care until they get ill, so it's a hard one to batter across. You talk about, as people think about fat loss, they think of it as calories in, calories out, so it doesn't matter. But with stuff like long working hours, long days at a desk, think of the effect that a couple of hours sleep could actually have. You might have to work less because you'll be more efficient when you actually do work.
Yeah, I remember years ago when I was training with PT, and I used the line, "There's just not enough hours in the day," and he called me out on it straight away, and he went, "That's absolute bullshit."
Mm.
And I was like, what? And he's like, everyone has 24 hours in a day. It's just what you do with them. And it's like a little light bulb moment in my head. I was like, oh Christ, Jay, he's right. So yeah, I love the old "there's not enough hours in the day" excuse now. So I've turned into him where I'm like, no, everyone's got 24 hours.
Mm.
Don't throw that excuse out there. Yeah, it's just
prioritizing it. That's all it is.
That's it. And we should be. So we're trying to get into try and get into your heads, guys. Is we should prioritize sleep. You know, I've done it in the past where I'm walking out, like going out for walks in like 10 o'clock at night because I haven't hit my steps. Where really, what's more important probably to me, especially like the next day, just don't worry about the steps. Just get your sleep and, you know, maybe try and get them in early in the day and learn from your mistakes rather than leaving it too late.
Well, you know, you can always spot the coach in SOS who hasn't had enough sleep. Whether it's me, you, or James, you can probably spot them when you walk in the room.
Yeah, like my boot camp is today. Paul was like, "You're quiet." I was like, I don't even know what I said. It was very blunt, put it that way. And he's like, yeah, you've had a bad night's sleep. You were on the early this morning."
That's the thing.
Or we usually see us jittering from drinking all the coffee.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can usually spot us who's on the early shift.
Yeah.
All right then. So in terms of any questions, we've only got Stacey with us. So Stacey, any questions? Check them in the chat now, and we'll get on to them.
Or unmute yourself and chat to us.
Yeah, got a little chat.
Nothing.
No, nothing.
Oh, yeah, there's dogs barking, so I don't want to like spoil your lives. So they're quiet for a minute, but they'll start back again soon.
No, it's all right. It's just us radio, so you know.
Yes, thank you for these lives. I know they're really helpful. I know you've spoke to me about it anyway, Greg, but it's nice to sort of be able to look back on them as well and sort my shit out.
I know, and we're especially me. I'm so hypocritical because sleep is one of the biggest things I need to work on. But yeah, that's why I sort of want to sort of keep going on about it and trying to help you guys, because I know when I do get it right, I feel so much better. And training is better. It's like my adherence to my diet is better, and therefore results then are better. But when I don't get it right, I feel it straight away. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to like really drill into people, is like, it sounds a bit like an airy fairy reason that we say, oh, just get some more sleep and you know that will help you, but it's true. And you know, there's a reason we keep going on about it and nagging everyone.
So again, when you say people, what's your stress levels like? I'm like, what the fuck has that got to do with anything?
I know, because they want the magic pill sometimes, and it's like, just take this and that will fix all your problems. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
I had to start hiding from people in work now. I'm like, please don't ask me another stupid question, because I'm literally going to go crazy on you now.
I know, yeah, it's bad when you haven't had a good sleep.
It's bad.
You just know not to speak to people on certain days, don't you? We would hope people would figure it out if you're having one of those days. All right then. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there then. So we've got one more part to the sleep series. So next week, part 3, we're going to be focusing on actually some more practical things that you guys can do. So yeah, we're going to give you some things you can take away and actually use and start implementing into your routine. But yeah, for anyone who's watching this back on YouTube, or Sam will probably put it in the Facebook group. So yeah, if you have any further questions, just drop them in the comments, and me and Greg will make sure you tag us in them so we see it, just in case we miss it. But yeah, if you have any questions, drop them in there, and we'll pick them up and try and help you out. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, Stace, and thanks for Greg for backing me up.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll call it a day there, and see you all guys soon. All right.
Nice one.
Bye.
Nice one, Zoe.